Hi, I'm Whitney.
And I'm Camden. Welcome to Ghosts and Garnets Murder in Idaho.
Old-timey fun. Almost Friday.
Why can't I say murder in Idaho? Every time I'm like, murder in Idaho.
I love it. I love that you do it like that.
Well, I'm not going to stop probably, so.
It would be really boring if you just were like, no personality.
Murder in Idaho. Podcast on the Gem State. Where we have a few ghosts and a lot of garnets. Join us weekly. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, I'm not ever worried about a lack of personality from you. We have been hitting you guys heavy with the murder the last few weeks. A lot of bodies piling up, and it's been kind of gory. And so we thought, and there people die in the story. This is just who we are. But it's old-timey murder.
This is like Whitney's, her dreams coming to fruition.
Yes.
About her capers.
Yes, this is like a caper plus. You know, a caper is, in my mind, bumbling idiots that try to be criminals and fail spectacularly and hysterically. And these guys are not quite that, but it's very close to a caper. It's like a caper plus, like PG-13 style of criminal behavior.
In the Old West.
In the wild, wild Northwest.
What's that? Wild, Wild West. It's the Will Smith song.
Yes, and that movie was terrible.
It was terrible, but did you know that one of the train track scenes was right outside of Grangeville on those old train tracks, right outside of Cottonwood, too?
I did not know that.
True story.
Was Will Smith there?
Sure was. I have no idea.
Yeah, they lost me when they had that giant mechanical situation.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
It was terrible. It was awful. The music video was good. The song was good.
Yeah, well, Will Smith's songs are always they're kind of catchy.
Yeah, I know.
The thing about parents, they just don't understand.
The thing about Will Smith is, he is proof positive that you do not have to swear in order to be successful. I do not follow that life rule, but I appreciate it in other people.
This is a fact. Did you know that I still know the entire rap, if you will, to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Oh, so do I.
And every once in a while, I pull it out on my children, and they are not amused.
You know, they just don't appreciate it.
Children, they just don't understand.
Yes, they don't. He was right about that. I remember Entertainment Tonight, dun, 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 and then Fresh Prince would come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good night. Oh my God, I'm 100. It's fine.
Well, the story we have for you today is the story of the Portneuf Canyon stage robbery, starring a man named Big Dave Updike and his band of Bozos.
The fact, Bozos is like one of my favorite words. It sounds so ridiculous.
These guys really were.
Well, it's fitting.
It's like he just went around and hand-picked the idiot of each bunch.
Give me your biggest idiot. Send him my way.
Give me your biggest idiot, your most violent idiot, and, let's go rob a stagecoach.
Let's go on a mission.
Yeah. On July 26th, 1865, a stagecoach robbery in the Portneuf Canyon in the newly established Idaho Territory would lead to the deaths of 4 innocent stage passengers, 3 established criminals, the dispatch of a gang of vigilantes, and the disappearance of a literal fortune in gold that has to this day never been found.
What? I know.
Fortune, my friends. And this is not the only one in Idaho. I found a website, and there are like 8 or 9 different hidden fortunes of dummies that robbed something and then hid it somewhere and then died, and no one has found them.
So if any of you go out there looking for it and you find it, you owe us a cut.
Yeah, we get a finder's fee for telling you this story.
Yep.
So before the railroad made its way west, the transportation of goods and mail and gold were moved from Montana to Utah by freight and stage lines. So, big wagons. The stage line was expanded into Idaho Territory in 1864, and though it provided a much-needed service, it was crazy dangerous to travel with them. So the Portneuf Road leading from Virginia City, Montana, to Pocatello, Idaho, often carried gold from the Montana mines and soon became the target of criminals near and far. Today, we are going to tell you about 4 of those criminals whose botched mess of a robbery can only be described as an out-and-out blunder.
I see what you did there.
Bringing it back to Murder House.
Oh, gee. All right, well, let's talk about Big Dave Updike. Mr. Updike was born in Cayuga Lake, New York, in about 1830. He was said to have been the black sheep of an upstanding and well-respected family. In 1855, he went to California, where he was employed for 2 years by the California Stage Company as a stage driver. Around 3 years later, he sailed to British Columbia to look for another kind of work, but soon returned to California, spending 2 years in Yuba County, then 2 years in Virginia City, Nevada. In 1862, Big Dave heard about the gold boom in Idaho and made his way north, where he worked a valuable claim on Ophir Mountain, which is in what is now Shoshone County. In 1864, he had saved more than $1,500 and went to Boise City, where he bought a livery stable in the center of town. Rather than just stable horses, Big Dave decided he would make his place of business the hub of Idaho Territory's criminal network. Though Updike had committed no known crimes up until this point, he had made the acquaintance of some of the Old West's most reckless bands of robbers and road agents. Road agents is what they call the stagecoach robbers, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
In order to help facilitate his criminal plans, Updike ran for the position of sheriff of Ada County, March of 1864. And though many of his associates were what we'd call degenerate criminals, they were a strong power in the then Democratic Party, and Updike won the election by a small margin. It's insane. I mean, but that's the perfect plan.
No, it is the perfect plan. And you know what's crazy? He was not the only sheriff in Idaho who was a stagecoach robber. There's another one.
So weird. But it is the perfect idea, especially back then.
Yeah.
Before long, Updike was suspected of aiding in the circulation of stolen gold dust, as well as participating in a stage robbery near Boise City. The shadiness at this Liberty business he had was so apparent, many citizens began to refer to the group surrounding Big Dave as Updike's gang. However, he and his outlaw buddies covered their tracks so well, nothing could be proven.
Do you know what a livery is?
Was it like where horses are?
It's like a horse hotel. It's where people bring their horses to hang out overnight.
Look at how my reasoning of deduction figured out what it was.
Yeah.
Horses.
So that's where you stable your horse if you don't have a stable.
I think if you have a horse, you should have a stable.
I think these people were traveling quite a bit, you know?
Oh, travelers.
They were wanderers and road agents.
Mm-hmm.
Their horses had to go somewhere at night so they could go to the saloon and the whorehouse.
Well, maybe the horses wanted to go to the saloon whorehouse. I guess maybe the livery was the
livery was a whorehouse for horses.
A whorehouse for horses. Next week on Ghosts Incarnates.
Let's talk vigilantes, shall we?
Yes, please.
All right. So during this time, there were few, if any, actual laws around the new territories. Groups known as vigilantes often took enforcement of the law and moral codes into their own hands. The term vigilante stems from its Spanish equivalent, meaning private security agents. And these people were private citizens that sort of banded together, and sometimes for good and sometimes not for good. So they were most common in mining communities, but were also known to exist in towns and farming settlements in the West. Vigilante justice included whipping and banishment from the town, but more often offenders were lynched. The vigilantes were often seen as heroes and supported by law-abiding citizens, and were seen as a necessity to keep settlements safe. Sometimes the Vigilance Committee began to wield too much power and would become corrupt. At other times, vigilantes were nothing more than ruthless mobs attempting to take control away from authorities or masking themselves as do-gooders when they really had criminal intent on their minds. Soon after his election, Big Dave decided to break up a vigilante organization of about 30 men, which had formed in the Payette River settlement some 30 miles from Boise City, because they were cramping his criminal enterprise. So they were up by what is now Horseshoe Bend. This enraged many law-abiding citizens who felt that the Vigilante Committee was really their only protection from the thieving and murdering road agents in the area. But Updike, he cared not, and somehow obtained all the names of the men in the vigilante group, procuring warrants for their arrests. While this was sort of on the up and up and perfectly legal, Big Dave secretly planned to shoot the vigilante leaders and then tell everyone that they had resisted arrest so that he could continue on with his law breaking without a mob coming after him. The plan was that 15 to 20 armed men would leave Boise City, meet up with more road agents at Horseshoe Bend, and then proceed with their warrants to the Payette River settlement. However, residents of Boise got wind of this plan and sent a messenger to the Payette vigilantes. As Updykes' posse left Boise City at about 4 p.m. to carry out the arrests, the 30 members of the vigilante group were assembling. When the posse arrived at the settlement, they were surprised to find themselves outnumbered 2-1. Forced to negotiate with the vigilantes, Updike complied with their demands. The vigilantes agreed to go to Boise City to answer the warrants, but they would not allow Updike or his men to disarm them. After arriving in Boise City and obtaining an attorney, the complaints against the vigilantes that were totally made up and nonsensical were dismissed, and they were discharged. Afterwards, they were obviously pissed off and even more determined to take Big Dave down. The public soon began to believe that the Updike gang was behind every crime that occurred anywhere in the area.
Now they have a reputation. Do you know how fast stagecoaches go? Because I do.
Fast?
No.
There were many horses pulling them.
No, they average 6 to 8 miles per hour.
Well,
that's
fine.
Fast for a horse, I guess, but
they normally had like 4 to 6 horses pulling them at a time. I mean, it was not...
I know, but that's still how fast they were going. And so, I mean, that's fast for a horse, but could you imagine traveling like that? I mean, and they said when they were taking passengers, when it was like a passenger stagecoach, they would stop. They had some stops that had food and water and like a little place for them to just catch their breath or whatever, but it was like a 40-minute stop, and then they kept going. And they just were so
and some of them had to travel on top of the coach.
Yeah.
If there wasn't enough room in mail stages and stuff, they would stuff everybody, all these passengers in to the coach, but then some people would have to sit on top of the coach
And sometimes
as it was going that fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
no thank you. Snowing and raining and cold.
We would not do well.
Oh no, I never would have made it. I would have died of, what was it? I would have died of dysteria or something on the, what is it, the Oregon Trail game? That probably happened to me. I would never make it.
Diphtheria?
No, it's not diphtheria. Dysentery.
It's not dysteria.
It's dysentery. I'm trying to get words out of my mouth.
No, we would not have survived. I also would not have gone on it because I know my limits.
Well, I would be so scared. I mean, my husband is very safe with me because he knows I'm a crazy scared person. But when we go on, like, our ranger rides in our ATV, like, if there's anything shady, I'm, like, scream at him. I will get out and I will walk my happy ass around to the scary part and then get back in. So I don't. Oh my God, I can't even think about it.
No, someone was like, okay, we're going to make our way west to get some gold and become rich. I would be like, have a nice time. I'll probably never see you again. I don't do well in moving carriages.
And I'm going to stay by the fire.
Or roughing it in any way.
I'm just going to say it. If you were living during that time, you were probably roughing it in some way anyway, but not on the Stagecoach way. Where are you living? Do you think that you would be in a bordello? Or do you think you would be like the doctor's daughter in town? Or...
Definitely would not be the doctor's daughter. I think I might be the madam of the bordello.
Would. And what am I, your hilarious sidekick? Now that you've got some background on the area and the goings-on, let's talk about the other three stage robbers. So, along with Big Dave Updike, there was a man named Brocky Jack, who had recently broken out of jail in Oregon and had been hiding out in a nearby ranch. The third member was a man named Willie Whitmore, who was known for his quick temper and deadly aim. The fourth man was a little-known player that went by the name of Fred Williams. On May 31st, 1865, the four outlaws left Boise City, headed toward the Portneuf stage route in eastern Idaho, more than 200 miles away. Making camp at Ross Fork Creek, near Fort Hall, the men worked out the details of the holdup. Fred Williams was sent to Virginia City, Montana, to gain information about the gold shipments. Once he was sure that the stage line would be carrying the precious cargo, he was to purchase a ticket and ride along as a passenger. In the meantime, the other three bandits traveled south along the stage road looking for the perfect place for the holdup. A few miles south of present-day Pocatello, the trio found a narrow canyon that was heavily timbered, rocky, and filled with brush. Determining that location provided everything they needed, the bandits began to work out the details of the robbery. They soon gathered a number of large boulders that would be utilized to block the stage road, hiding them out of sight until they were needed. Additionally, they decided that Willie Whitmore, armed with a new Henry repeating rifle, was to shoot the lead horses if the driver found a way around the roadblock. So, with the details all worked out, the three bandits returned to Ross Fork Creek to wait for their accomplice, Fred Williams. It would be nearly 2 weeks before they received any word. On July 21st, 1865, the Stagecoach left Virginia City with a seasoned driver, Charlie Parks, and 7 passengers, including one calling himself Fred Williams. Crossing the Ruby Mountains, the stage spent its first night at the Corral Station near present-day Dillon, Montana. For the next 3 days, the stagecoach traveled along the route where the Union Pacific Railroad would later be built to Pocatello.
Now, we're going to take a minute to talk about Charlie Parks because he was legendary in this area. In the early 1860s, Charlie Parks was one of 80 Pony Express riders who served Utah, Nevada, and California, where he was regarded as one of the most capable and faithful men of the Western Division. After the Pony Express ended, he worked as a shotgun messenger for Wells Fargo. So in this capacity, it was his duty to guard the iron boxes of treasure, money, gold, silver, that was in the boot of the Stagecoach. In his seat beside the driver, he carried his sawed-off weapon, ever ready to use for any encounters that they would have with road agents that were plentiful in the early days of mining in the West. So on the fourth night, the Stagecoach stopped at the Sod House station. After the passengers had dinner, Fred Williams excused himself and headed towards the camp where the Bozos were. Big Dave, Brocky Jack, and Whitmore were thrilled to hear that the coach was transporting 2 large strongboxes laden with gold. After a celebratory drink, Williams headed back to the station. No one had even noticed that he was gone. On July 26th, 1865, the coach set out once again. Around midday, it reached the area where the gang was hiding. They had to slow down to cross the river, and as the coach traveled through, up the bank on the other side, and then it stopped. Now it stopped because there were large boulders put across the road, and they could not get past. Suddenly, the outlaws appeared with their guns raised. One of the passengers, a professional gambler named Sam Martin, poked his head out of the door with his gun in his hand. He aimed it at Whitmore and pulled the trigger, and he shot off Whitmore's left index finger, which enraged this guy who already had a legendary temper. Enraged, Whitmore began to empty his rifle into the side of the Stagecoach. In a desperate attempt to escape, Charlie Parks tried to maneuver the horses. He tried to get the coach around the boulders. And there was a little break in the brush, and he thought he could get around them. But before that happened, Brocky Jack shot both of the lead horses, and the stage was stopped in its tracks. So Charlie Parks, who had been shot by this point, jumped from the coach and ran for cover into the wooded area. In the meantime, Fred Williams, who was one of the criminals, and another passenger named James B. Brown, who was a saloon keeper, also ran into the brush to escape the shooting. Finally, Brocky Jack managed to get the rifle out of Whitmore's hands, so the shooting stopped, finally. And cautiously, Brocky Jack approached the Stagecoach while Whitmore and Updike covered him. He yelled, "Come out of there with your hands up," but was only met with silence. He then opened the door of the coach and yelled, "My God, they're all dead." No shit, they're dead. Willie Whitmore just emptied his fucking rifle into the side of the coach. It's not made of iron. It's a wooden coach.
With like no windows.
Dummy. So inside were the 5 bodies of passengers Sam Martin, the professional gambler who had shot off Willie's finger, Mr. and Mrs. Andy Ditmar, a Mormon couple who had been visiting relatives in Bannock, Montana, Jess Harper, an ex-Confederate soldier who was on his way to visit his parents in California, and a man named L.F. Carpenter, who was headed for San Francisco to catch a steamship to New Orleans. All were dead, except for Carpenter, who was injured and sort of under the dead passengers, and he was pretending to be dead, so they didn't shoot him again.
So scary.
Yeah.
Okay, so as the gang began to rob the Stagecoach and its dead passengers, accomplice Fred Williams staggered from the woods with a shattered arm from one of Whitmore's bullets. I just can't. Idiot.
He shot one of his own.
He ran into them, and he ran into the bushes. The 3 other outlaws barely even noticed him. Whitmore and Brocky Jack hauled the 2 strong boxes from the stage and cracked the large iron locks with an axe. Inside were 15 heavy gold bars and 2 large pouches filled with gold dust and nuggets. 2 more pounds of gold dust and nuggets were found in the passenger compartment. The outlaws packed up and rode out of the canyon. After they were out of sight, Charlie Parks and James Brown, the saloon keeper, cautiously emerged from the woods. Brown pulled the still-breathing carpenter from beneath the dead bodies and made him and Charlie Parks as comfortable as possible inside the coach. He then cut the stage loose from the 2 dead horses and drove it to the nearest station.
That's hero. That's hero style.
I know, they should make a movie about him.
Yeah.
As the survivors told their story to local law, Charlie Parks recognized sketches of Brocky Jack and David Updike, while James Brown positively identified Fred Williams and Willie Whitmore. The insurance company, in an attempt to reclaim its $86,000 loss, immediately offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of the gold and the capture of the robbers. In the meantime, the ever-active Vigilance Committee, I just love that name, Vigilance Committee, issued orders to hang the criminals once they were captured. Willie Whitmore, the hot-tempered gunman who had killed all the passengers and injured his own gang members, was the first to be caught. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
While on a drinking binge in Arizona, he resisted arrest when lawmen tried to take him in and was subsequently shot. Just a week later, Fred Williams was captured in Colorado and hanged by the local Vigilance Committee. Both men were flat broke when they were captured. David Updike was a different story. Because he was the sheriff, vigilantes were more cautious and waited until they had something they could prove against him. On September 28, 1865, the Payette River Vigilance Committee arrested him for defrauding the revenue and failing to arrest a hard case outlaw named West Jenkins. However, when Updike made bail, he immediately left town, fleeing to Boise City, where he had more influence. However, the citizens were fed up with his bullshit and decided to clean house.
We don't realize the distance that these people travel to, get shit done.
How quick they found some of them?
I mean, just from the Payette settlement to Boise, it's 100 and something miles. And then Boise to where Pocatello is what, 200 miles?
I don't know. It's a long drive by car.
On a horse.
So I can't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, these guys weren't lazy.
No, that's for sure.
They had time, I guess.
Got the time.
What else does a sheriff do in Boise City, Idaho Territory in 1865?
Well,
run a livery and rob coaches. By the following spring, Updike finally was feeling the heat and started to feel fear for his safety. And on April 12th, 1866, he and another outlaw named John Dixon left Boise. Unaware that a vigilante party was following them, the two overnighted at an abandoned cabin some 30 miles out of town. During the night, the vigilantes captured the unsuspecting pair and led them 10 miles farther down the road to Syrup Creek. The following day, as the vigilantes prepared to hang them, they questioned Big Dave about the whereabouts of the stolen gold. Big Dave kept his mouth shut. The vigilantes then hanged both men under a shed between 2 vacant cabins. At that time, Big Dave Updike had only $50 on him. So I found an article. It was from the Idaho Statesman, which at the time was called the Idaho Tri-Weekly Statesman because it was only released 3 days a week. And this was from April 17th, 1866. And the title of the article is More of the Vigilantes, Updike and Dixon Hung. Mr. Dover and another gentleman arrived in town from Rocky Bar Sunday afternoon, bringing the news that D.C. Updike and Jake Dixon were hanging at Syrup Creek. Mr. Dover and his companion camped at Syrup Creek, about dark on Saturday night and had occasion to go down to the house a short distance and were surprised at finding no one living there but Updike suspended in the shed between the two houses. On the body was pinned the following card: Dave Updike, the aider of murderers and horse thieves, XXX. The discovery had the effect to make their camp a lonesome one for the night. Coming on the next morning, they learned that Jake Dixon was also hanging to a tree a few miles down the creek. They could not tell how long the bodies had been there. Justice Klein started yesterday morning for Syrup Creek for the purpose of properly disposing of them. Monday morning, the following card was found posted on Main Street, written in the same handwriting as the one found pinned on Dave Updike. This card said, Dave Updike, accessory after the fact to the Portneuf stage robbery. Accessory and accomplice to the robbery of the stage near Boise City in 1864. Chief conspirator in burning property on the Overland stage line. Guilty of aiding and assisting West Jenkins, the murderer, and other criminals to escape while you were sheriff of Ada County. Accessory and accomplice to the murder of Raymond, threatening the lives and property of an already outraged and suffering community. Justice has overtaken you. XXX. Then it said, I don't know what the XXX is. And then it said, Jake Dixon, horse thief, counterfeiter, and road agent generally. A dupe and a tool of Dave Updike. XXX. And then it finished with, all the living accomplices in the above crimes are known through Updike's confession and will surely be attended to. The roll is being called. XXX.
Roll call. Ooh.
I'm telling you, these guys, man, like,
maybe we could
they were fucking around.
Roll call.
And they were just pinning stuff on Main Street.
Well, here's what I'm like. Okay, so if I commit a murder, or okay, what if I do nothing and somebody hangs me and says, then they can just pin a note to me that says, well, she murdered some people and was generally a bad person. XXX.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the trouble with this is that I think
that's the trouble.
Well, there are many troublesome aspects of this, but I think the vigilante committees, for the most part, were meant to like keep the law and order and keep people safe since there weren't any lawmen. But then bad guys like Big Dave can twist this to my own gain. Like, roll is being called. I think we should make a shirt.
And I think we should make a movie, and it's called Roll Call, and it's about this.
Ooh, that's a good TM. Nobody steal the idea.
That is patented. We will come for you. We will vigilante your ass.
Yes. Justice for all.
That'll be the tagline on the movie poster. With this kind of imagery, we're going to get, like, Nicolas Cage is the only guy we're going to be able to get to be in this movie. Roll call.
I was going to say...
Roll call.
Ew.
Justice for all. I know, Nicolas Cage is my nightmares. Sorry, Nicolas.
You know who'd be good? Bruce Willis.
I know, but he's not doing movies anymore, so we got to find somebody else. Maybe Clint Eastwood's son. Well,
I don't enjoy him.
I know, I don't really either. But I just think Clint Eastwood, for the Westerns, but he's really old.
Well, yeah. He is really old.
Really
But
old.
I still like him better than the son.
Well, same.
Yeah. So, we've got Whitmore dead. Fred, what's his face? Dead. Big Dave Updike? Dead. Now, Brocky Jack managed to completely disappear. Never to be seen again.
Pulled a Houdini.
He pulled a disappearing act. And we'll come back to him because I have a theory. And then Charlie Parks, and I'm just going to add this because I thought he's such a badass. So after this, he made his home in San Francisco where he was in the insurance and brokerage business. He was about 70 years old when he died. on May 27th, 1907. He won undying fame as a defender over the trust of which he watched, meaning all of the gold and the monies and all of the things that he was a protector of when he was on the stages, having survived being shot more than 20 times over the course of his career.
That is insanity. How did he live?
I don't know.
Maybe he was an old-timey superhero.
So, the treasure. There is no record of these gold bars as ever being sold anywhere. This, coupled with the weight of the bars and the fact that all of these guys were broke as fuck, I think that's my first fuck of this episode.
Nope, second.
Oh.
I'm so disappointed.
I'm trying to change for people. It's against my nature. So, because these guys were broke when they died, it has led to speculation that they had buried the gold somewhere near the site of the robbery and then all sort of went in four directions until the heat was off of them. The gold, which was valued at $86,000 in 1865, today would be worth almost $1.7 million. Where
is it?
Well, I don't know, but the only person who would have known where it was buried is Brocky Jack. And Brocky Jack was never seen again.
I wonder, do you think he went and got it? I mean, it's not like we have patrolmen out there.
I don't know how. I mean, he could easily get rid of the dust. He could easily get rid of the nuggets. But those bars, those are stamped. Like, you can't just sell a gold bar. And so I don't know. But it would be wild if someone found it.
Yeah. Maybe we should have a trip down south.
The robbery site was in the canyons right around the Portneuf River, a few miles south of present-day Pocatello. So if people want to do like a canyon exploration, our finder's fee is 10% of whatever you find.
Disclaimer, please do not do anything that could harm you, kill you, or otherwise lead us to be charged with any criminal
offenses.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Yeah, excellent.
I said it.
That was super legal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Do you know that in a stagecoach, if they were sleepy, which you would be, traveling for days and days, and this was an uncomfortable thing, they, slept sitting up in their seat,
right?
Obviously. And it was considered bad etiquette to rest one's head on another passenger.
Yeah.
That would suck.
Can you imagine how stinky it would be in one of those?
Well, yeah, but listen, sleep is very important to me.
Well, I agree, but I also, I can't even sleep on a plane. You think I'm going to be able to sleep in a stinky, stifling, stuffed with dirty people stagecoach?
No, but
I'd rather sit on the top of the stagecoach and hang on for my dear life.
You would not.
Yes, I would.
I've met
yes,
you.
I would. Yes, I would.
You'd be days
I'll just
and
strap
days.
myself
You
in.
could be in there for a week. You have to sleep. Your mind, you would go crazier than you are right now.
Strap me to the top of the coach, hit me in the head with a rock, and hopefully I'll wake up when we get there. That's what I say.
Also, I have these little facts. The first robbery of a stagecoach occurred in 1856, and the last one in 1913. And over that period, there were recorded 457 stagecoach robberies.
Really? Only 1856?
That's what it says.
God, I thought it would have been a lot earlier than that.
Well,
I mean, what do I know?
Shows how much you know about the Wild West.
Zero. I know a little bit because of Big Dave Updike now.
Well, that. What's that show that everyone was watching for a while? It was about the gold and the old-timey settlement, and there was lots of...
Are you talking about Deadwood?
Yes!
You want to talk about fucking swear words?
That was 3.
Deadwood. They swore every other word. You don't like my vocab, don't watch that show. It is so good. It was one of my favorite shows that's ever been on.
I love Calamity Jane. Such a badass.
So good.
I know.
Yes. Al Swearingen. He was so
Yes.
bad that you also loved him.
I know.
Yes.
I was
God,
like,
I love
maybe I
that
want to
show.
go back. Maybe we'll have to revisit it.
Russ and I watched it a few different times. I watched it before we met, and then when we met, I made him watch it. So I rewatched the, I think there were only
Yeah, it wasn't very...
3 seasons. There were only 2 seasons, and then they did like a Deadwood movie a few years ago.
It wasn't long enough.
No, it definitely wasn't long enough.
I didn't finish it, I don't think.
Really? It's so good.
Yeah, I think I started watching it with my parents at the cabin and did a lot of binging.
Ken and my mom did it. But you know what? Ken recommended it to my grandmother at one point, which was a truly horrible idea because she hates the swearing. And I think maybe I watched the 5 minutes with her, and I was so uncomfortable that I had to leave.
That's like watching a sex scene with your parents.
Oh my God.
you look at the corner like, oh, that corner is so interesting.
Yeah. Well, and this has sex and murder and cursing and all of the things, and like a dude trying to have sex with a horse. I mean, it is like
gross.
Yeah. So don't watch it
Yeah.
with your grandmother, especially if she's a lady.
Or with
Like
your
mine
parents.
was.
Awkward.
So anyway, that was the story of the Portneuf stage robbery, which is wild times.
Well, let's talk about Idaho.
Yeah.
Proving that liking a bad boy is as old-timey as it gets. Oh, Whitney's surprising me with this one. This was from the Idaho Statesman, April 29th, 1876. Sheriff Agnew yesterday found the stage robber T.B. Scott's hiding place at the lower end of George Davis's farm on Boise River, about 3 miles below town. Here was found his blankets, in which was rolled up a shotgun. A false face was also found, with cooking utensils, etc. That is a wild sentence.
I know.
That's a real roller coaster of words. Scott was captured 2 days later, hiding under the Baptist church. Well, he probably needed some Jesus. John W. Miller, his accomplice, was also found and arrested. The Statesman called Scott decidedly the handsomest man in Boise City, and described him as, quote, a young man of medium size and height, and apparently about 25 years old. He is physically as fine a specimen of young manhood as we have ever seen. His features are regular and classic in their outline, presenting a model for the most critical and fastidious artist. A head shaped with all the requisites... I can't. What is with people back in 1870s describing people's physical features in the newspaper articles? Okay,
Crying.
continuing. I have to start that again because
My face
I
hurts.
can't get the sentence. It won't make a head shaped with all the requisites for the dome of thought and covered with hair of a rich brown, while his goatee and unshaven beard is of a lighter hue. His eyes are large, somewhat prominent blue in color. End quote. New quote. The girls are now all in love with Scott on account of the description given of him in the last issue of the Statesman, claimed the paper on May 6, 1876. Flattering to itself, but certainly not to the common sense of Boise's young women. Scott never stopped trying to escape, whether from Boise's wretched city jail or the Idaho Territory Penitentiary, even after he was placed in leg irons. He always found something made of steel, with which to saw away at his irons, and finally escaped, taking a rifle and shotgun with him. Where did he get those? We are unable to find a portrait of the handsome Scott or any record of his further exploits. Oh my Lanta! Oh my God. It was out of hand.
The Dome of Thought. I know the Idaho Statesman, I found the archives from 1864 all the way up to present day. And the 1800s, the Idaho Statesman was wild. It was...
Well, here's what I know. I know that I'm obsessed with this sentence. Here was found his blankets, in which was rolled up a shotgun. False face was also found.
Yeah.
With cooking utensils.
I don't know what the false face is.
Well, you know on The Office when Dwight puts that, like, bologna on his face with the holes cut out? That's what I'm picturing. Like, the holes chewed out for his face, and he slaps it on.
Gross! Nothing is grosser than lunch meat.
My bologna has a first name. Okay. This has been a lot. This has been a lot. But you know what? We needed a little break. We needed something extra. We needed this. Yeah. We needed some laughter. Yeah. So
we'll get back to gore next week, maybe.
So anyway, that's the story of the Big Dave Updike Bozo gang of misfits and their roundabout crew. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with us.
If you did, please like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to sponsor the show, you can reach us at ghostsandgarnets@gmail.com. And if you are interested in subscribing or learning more about Patreon, you can find a link in the show notes. It says support the show. You can click on it. It will take you to Patreon where you can see all of the cool bonus stuff that you get if you subscribe to the show. And we are so appreciative of all of our listeners and all of our subscribers.
And Nancy Gersak is our newest patron, right?
Yes, Nancy Gersak.
Nancy!
Who we love
so much. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.